You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
Happy Thursday. What's good, everyone? It's the Thursday edition of Leafs Morning Take presented by our good friends over at Betano, Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill. I guess you're back from your retreat, Rosie?
I'm back, you squid. Just doing some scouting out there, some potential guests for the show, just grinding the pavement as usual. Maybe snuck in a little bit of golf out there too.
It looks like you have one of those like Russian tracksuits on. Were you like a tracksuit guy growing up? Because I know my grandparents used to buy me those like Fila tracksuits back in the day. It was like a full like set, you know? Were you one of those guys?
Maybe if you go back to like 93, I had a little Nike tracksuit going on, but I could see you having a nice Italian set of tearaway pants going on with the Adidas stripes going on in the Italian flag colors. I see you, Paisan.
Exactly it. And Aaron Bordato, our producer, is already writing tracksuit is a classic Italian move. Yes, anybody who's watched The Sopranos knows what we're talking about. If you're in the chat and you're Italian, give us a shout because Fila was my choice back in the day. It was like sweatshirt and sweatpants for life until I realized jeans were a thing when I was like 12 years old. It took me a while. I won't lie. The girls stayed away from me. Surprisingly.
I know. I remember being in grade 1 or 2 and I was sitting beside this really pretty girl in my class and she had on this nice dress and I just looked down at my stained Northern Getaway pants and I was like, I need to clean this shit up. And that was a real awakening moment for me.
Dude, honestly, it's like funny you bring that up because like growing up, never really put much stock into like how you looked. At least I didn't. Like when I went to school, just put any shit that worked together, went to school. But then I started to realize like people were actually attracted to like smell and like what you wear and just your bravado and the way you like it's crazy how like you don't really think about that when you're young, but then you start dressing a bit differently. I'm rocking some Randy River one day and people are like, whoa, who is this guy? You know?
I think that might have something to do with females, hormones, puberty. Tend to go through that at a certain point in time. I remember some buddies just loaded, just bathing in cologne, shower to the point where the teachers couldn't even be around these goddamn boys anymore. It's like, man, you need your dad to pull you aside and tell you how to figure things out. But that's life, baby.
The Italian shower. Any fine Italian would know exactly what that was. Pretty much, you didn't want to shower. You essentially doused yourself in cologne or Axe or both of the two, and you walked out proudly with your chest puffed.
Jesus. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not in a tracksuit. It's just a zip up given to me by Crosscheck Clothing out of the UK.
Ooh,
and nice little zip up hoodie.
Was that back to your psycho days playing hockey in England, or?
That was what it was. Yep. Did a little photo shoot. And they said, take
again, I've referenced this a bit on this show, folks, and go down the wormhole that is YouTube and check out Jay Rosehill when he played overseas. It was a different Jay Rosehill than the father of two, the great husband you see here on this show.
There's one montage where getting a little heated. It was the end of the year. It was the end of my career. I was coming to terms with a lot of emotions, and the refereeing over there being nothing short of incredibly poor. It was just too much for a man to bear. And there's video evidence.
There is. Go check that out. The ref's always wrong. I love how players, it's just always the ref's problem. But nevertheless, I was trying to get to the point that it's Halloween season, dude. And I guess the Leafs had their Halloween party this week because they're on a 5-game road trip, which is like a week early. Like 10 days early, actually. Now that I look at the date, it's October 19th, and we're still looking at the 31st. But they're on the road for a while. You see what Ryan Reeves and his wife dressed up as?
I have not seen it.
Well, here it is. Put it on the screen. What an unbelievable costume. So it's a couple's costume, which again, you get style points. It's Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart, man. It's tremendous.
That is a wicked one, man. I like that. Oh, Martha. It's fun, man. The Halloween parties are wicked because guys go all out and they get like professionals to do their makeup and things like that, and the wives get all dressed up, and it's fun to watch. I miss those parties. They every year a team will usually do that, and it's early on enough in the season where it's kind of the first time you get to go out once the season's rocking and rolling, everyone's settled, your team's picked, you go out, have some drinks, nice dinner, dress up, have a laugh, and everyone kind of gets together for the first time in the season. I miss that.
Yeah, call me crazy, but I think it's actually one of the more polarizing times covering a team in the season is around Halloween, where you get to see the Halloween costumes. Now, I think this is the only couples costume we've seen so far. I know the players have reacted to this Halloween party. Nobody's really posted anything, but I like to see the creativity around the league because I think you're so right, and you were in this league. The fact that it's people with money. So it's like not your run of the mill, like party packagers costumes that I would do back in the day. It's something that you go balls out for. You're in the chair probably for 3 or 4 hours and you look fantastic. And that's where you see there with Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart. I love it.
Yeah, there's some good ones. They go all out. It's not a Target costume, you know. I remember Clark MacArthur and his wife did Forrest Gump and Lieutenant Dan, and his
Wow.
wife Jess was Lieutenant Dan, and she could sit in this wheelchair on her feet, so they were behind her, and it looked like she had amputated legs, and she had the costume down pat. And then Buddy Clarky was cruising around with like a ping pong paddle, and he just looked tall and dumb and had kind of the hair all perfect. It was one of my favorites that stands out for sure. But no, those are always fun parties, man. I remember them well. I wish I was going to a couple this year. Hey, remember TJ Oshie and his wife, Corella DeVille? And so I heard rumors about this woman, and she is just a dominant species, if you know what I'm talking about. And of course, she gets the picture to go online and viral of him on all fours, hands and knees, while she's standing up all, with a leash around his neck, just loving every second of it. I remember some stories I heard of that young woman, and that was about par for the course coming from that picture. But that always made me shake my head saying, what are you doing, TJ? Do you not have any pants to wear in that relationship? But
okay, so I'll piggyback off that. And we have great fans and listeners in our chat. And I didn't see this, but Hank Reardon writes in, Marner and his wife were Pink Panther and Inspector Clouseau. What are your thoughts on that? We don't have a picture of that yet, but
I want to see a picture. Who is who? Obviously, Pink Panther was Marner's girl.
Yeah,
I'd like to see it.
I would hope so.
Let's just go and gather up all the wives' costumes, because that's all really anyone wants to see. And we'll just.
I was waiting to see how long you would get to that level where you're like, fuck the guys. I don't want to see them. I want to see what the wives are wearing.
Well, guys are boring and girls are interesting. So
it took you 8 minutes.
Goes without saying.
It took you 8 minutes. I was going to ask you, I think you're going to be the voice of reason for me. And what one's
that's
this?
Oshie. That's Oshie and his wife.
That's the Oshie one.
God, that's embarrassing.
I don't know if I can do that, dude.
Makes like $8 million a year and just gets his show ran by this girl.
We walked around. I'd never seen this before.
Sweet Jesus.
I don't know how much money you'd have to pay me to pull off. Like if I was in a relationship, how much money you would have to pay me to pull off a costume or a couple's costume like that.
Well, he's not the first hockey player that she's dated, and she knew exactly what she wanted, and I guess she got it.
I guess I missed a lot of this, but Mr. P-Mel Bacon, great fan of the show. Nyes, Mint, and JT were a speed skating team. Okay, so I like that. No, I hope some pictures surface over the next couple of days. I was going to ask you too, like, I want you to be my voice of reason, because I was talking to a buddy the other day. I'm like, dude, should we go out this year for Halloween? And if we do, should we dress up? I know, there's been previous years where I've gone out, I haven't worn a costume. In fact, I haven't worn a costume in like 10 years. The last time I wore a costume, let's just say if I wore it now, I'd be canceled out of culture. I think I was a breathalyzer. And then before that, I was a beer bottle back in college. But I have like these 2 foam costumes sitting at home, one of which would get me canceled. The other is like past my time,
Why would breathalyzer get you canceled?
Because I had a tube by my
by your horn. I don't know if that.
And I remember it was like sort of floppy, so I had to put like toilet paper, like the tube of toilet paper. I had to put in there to keep it erect.
Oh, I like it. Yeah. I remember I saw some guy a little while ago. He had just like a box with like tinfoil around it, and it had these right by his face had 2 little holes right here, and it said free mammograms. Just a total creep show thing, but shit, you gotta laugh. I love the ingenuity on some of the things nowadays. We usually host Halloween at our house, trick-or-treating, and we put on some like pulled pork sammies and kind of feed everyone, and everyone comes over, has some drinks. My dad stays and does trick-or-treating. We go off, and the 31st is the day before hunting season opens up, so I pull all the hunting gear out, which is obviously really warm and everything else, and my wife just bees a little baby deer, and we go out and do it, and then the next morning my shit's all laid out to go hunting.
I love that. We had a couple great posts here from Tammy. We all know who the dominant one is in bed. That's referring to TJ Oshie, and then Tammy liked LMFAO, a breathalyzer. So Tammy is a big fan of the Halloween costumes. At the Leafs Nation 401 where you can subscribe here on YouTube at the Leafs Nation 401. If you're just watching for the first time, please subscribe, hammer that like button as well. Leafs Morning Take, wherever you catch your podcasts. I know my boy Jay Zemanovich, my former line mate, is checking us out now. So what up to him? I know he was like a day one listener, actually, but he's a big fan of the Leafs and following our stuff. And there's a lot to talk about with this team. And I was going to mention, too, for Halloween, Covered Bridge has you covered. Like, it's not like you have to go out and buy some candy for the kids, because Covered Bridge sent you over like a Brinks truck, pretty much.
Dude, I could sit there and do Halloween with Covered Bridge's boxes that they sent me. My God. Last night, my wife had a meeting to go to, and me and the boys went downstairs, and they're like, Dad, look at this. And I didn't know it had come, and we busted that thing open, put on Austin Powers, and we smashed so many chips, man. They were unbelievable. It was the perfect setup for it, and I'm going to have trouble staying away from these. I don't even know how many boxes packed full of chips, but they're unbelievable.
Yeah, that was a funny story. Like, talking to my concierge down here in my condo in Toronto, he's like, "So you got a delivery?" And I said, "Okay." And he points over, there's a box. He's like, "No, all those boxes." So literally like 4 boxes of Covered Bridge potato chips, which have been phenomenal, by the way. So many thanks to our new friends over at Covered Bridge. Brought to you by DoorDash. It's time for the appetizer, Rosie. Thanks to DoorDash, you don't have to worry about cooking dinner or running to the store anymore. For a limited time, our listeners/viewers can get 25% off and 0 delivery fees on their first order of $15 or more when you download the DoorDash app and enter code NATION25. That's NATION25. Reminder that it's an uppercase, so NATION25 is your promo code. Please note the offer is currently only valid in Canada. Sorry to our American listeners and friends. And subject to change. Terms apply. We're getting set for a measuring stick game. Game 1 of the season on the road. 1 of 5 on this 5-game roadie. It's the Leafs and the Panthers, the first time since last spring, Rosie.
Yeah, starting off with a bang. I know you like those revenge narratives. That's certainly what it is. A team that knocked you out of the playoffs when you're trying to have a historic postseason run. A team that wasn't really slated to do anything and did some serious damage, came very close to winning the Stanley Cup. They're not off to the best start. I was crunching the numbers. They certainly don't score as many goals as us, and they let in. Actually, they don't let in as many goals as us either. But
you crunch numbers over 3 games. Like, what are you crunching?
Crunching them, baby. Just
calculating potato chips.
Goals for, goals against. Our power plays hot.
Numbers guy over here. Your analytics now.
I'm a Corsi guy. You know, I'm a Corsi man.
Of course,
I don't even know what Corsi is. No, it's going to be a game that a lot of guys on that roster want. They're not going to be happy to see that crew over there, and I think they're going to want to say, hey, just so you know, this season's a different season. Your little Cinderella story's over, and they need to smash it. And it's important, no matter who they're playing at the beginning of a road trip, to get off to a good start. It sets the whole vibe, the whole tone, the whole tempo for a good road trip. All the practices that you have and all the traveling around and having team meetings and team dinners in the ballrooms of the hotels and stuff. Everyone's always together. And the vibe of that is so much sweeter when you start off with a couple of wins and do the right thing on the road trip. There's nothing worse than being on a road, grinding away while you're just dropping games left, right, and center. It's terrible. So important to get off to a good start, and no better opponent than the Floridian Panthers tonight.
I love Retribution just as much as the next guy, but it's unfortunate. Radko Gudas, who hollered in Joseph Woll's face, is now with the Anaheim Ducks. Sam Bennett's banged up. They're missing Montour. They're missing Ekblad. It's not the same team. So even if the Leafs wanted to get a bit of revenge and retribution, I think it's got to, weirdly enough, because I always joke about this, it's got to happen on the scoreboard. Beat the shit out of them offensively. I don't want to see them fight themselves out of the game, because that's not going to solve anything. And on top of that, a lot of these guys weren't even there last year when you played them.
Yeah, I didn't. I'm not thinking go beat them up or anything like that. Go smash them on the scoreboard, put them away, tell them, your little story's over. We're the team in the Atlantic. We're going to be smashing everyone this year, and you guys don't have a chance against us. And make sure that the feelings of the team, the players that were on the team last spring, when you got beat out, make sure you remember those feelings very, very well. Let it soak in for a second and remind yourself what that was like, and take that to the ice and put up some numbers.
I was sort of laughing when you brought up the fact that you like hunting, because I don't know if you saw this story. I know this is really random, but it's all I could think about for the last 3 minutes. Anthony Bass, I think it was a former reliever now for the Blue Jays, got some heat. It was a reliever for the Blue Jays. Maybe I should put it on Bass, but Blog TO did some whole article where he posted a picture with his kids and a deer he killed. So
Yeah.
If something out there could filter, Block TO is going to be all over it, bud.
It's weird, man, because
You can't hunt anymore, Rosie.
I'm going to
It's
go
over.
into this because I posted a picture of a deer, the first one I ever shot, and I couldn't believe it. A lot of it was from the fans over in the UK, but the comments were unreal. They were
Yeah, man.
freaking furious. And my
PETA.
reply was, "Are you guys all vegetarians?" And they're like, "No, but I don't kill innocent animals." I'm like, "You idiots. I'm out. You want to talk about organic? You want to talk about grass-fed? I'm in the meadow with this bloody thing. I shoot it and take care of it myself. Pint quarter, chop it up, put it into any different kinds of sausages, steaks, jerky, and I feed my family with it. I literally eat it. If you're not a vegetarian, if you're a vegetarian, you just don't like eating animals, that's fine. I'm like, okay, yeah, I understood. If you're not a vegetarian, you go to the grocery store and you buy beef and that thing goes through the feedlot and the slaughterhouse and all the rest of it, and they give it to you on a friggin' styrofoam tray, and you think that's better than going into the trees and getting your own food and harvesting it yourself, you're out of your friggin' mind. The ignorance of some people drives me nuts. Woo! All done. Thank you.
I'm happy you had to go on that tangent because, again, it was just playing over and over my mind. And we're trying to hit every department on this show and piss off every type of person possible. So I think we're in that direction. And Aaron writes in fucking rights. So Aaron's a supporter.
Fucking right there. Well, I get it. If you're from the city
Yeah.
and you're from Toronto and you know nothing about hunting and you see the pictures of some person going over to Africa and killing a lion, like, I get it, man.
Yeah.
That's your opinion. But if I go into the trees behind my house and I spend hours and hours and hours trying to stalk this prey and I take it down and I harvest it and I feed my family with it, and you're not a vegetarian and you have a problem with it, you're an idiot.
Okay. Public service announcement there from Jay Rosehill, the host of Leafs Morning Take at the Leafs Nation 401, where you can subscribe. With that PSA, let's get back on track, and it ties in perfectly. They're playing the Cats tonight. It's now called the Amerant Bank Arena. Again, and no disrespect to this team. Got some friends who cover that team, know some people really, really well in management on that team, but like, I'm not a big fan of this arena. It's in the middle of nowhere. Like, I wish it was in Miami or something like that. But I wonder, and I know it's the home opener, I wonder if Leafs fans take this building over, because that's been a story every time the Leafs go to Sunrise, take on the Panthers. It's like 75% Leafs fans. What are the chances that happens? I would love that.
Oh, very good. I mean, it's getting to that time of year where the snowbirds start to take off and head down south. Especially people in my neck of the woods tend to go to Arizona, Palm Springs, that type of thing. People a little bit more east tend to go down to Florida. I would love it. I'm playing for the Leafs when we were on the road, man, and we scored, and it literally was louder when we scored when they scored. It was hilarious. It was just like a suck it moment. Like, how do you like that? Like, how good are your fans? They can't even overwhelm our fans, and we're 2,500 clicks away from our hometown. It's funny. And I remember they had a little freak out moment when we were playing each other in the playoffs, where they were trying to organize different ways to prevent that from happening, which was a fun story to talk about. They were scared of it. In the end, it didn't really fucking work, but it is great. It shows what Leafs Nation is all about. It shows the spread and the reach of that organization and their fan base when you're going down to the south part of the United States, far away from downtown Toronto, and you are overwhelming NHL teams' fans with our own fandom. I love it.
Yeah, it's a different type of world out there for sure. Igor McJazz writes in, Rosie for Prime Minister. How would you feel about running for PM, Rosie?
I could smash that donkey that's in there right now, man. Oh my
Okay,
goodness.
we're not getting political on this show. The Wendy's Daily Faceoff Survivor Pool is set to launch on Monday, October 23rd. Of course, we're really, really excited about this. What's that, you ask? Well, it's a season-long NHL fantasy game sponsored by Wendy's. Everything will run through dailyfaceoff.com, so you'll create a username and password and be able to play along just like that. It's a Monday to Saturday Survivor contest where users will be able to make their selection each day and advance accordingly, and prizes will only be eligible to those users who are resident in Canada, except the province of Quebec. Pricing will vary on Wendy's weekly menu items. Also, there will be a season-long prize of $5,000 up for grabs as well. And Rosie, loved seeing this in practice yesterday. Looks like it's going to stick. First and foremost, Tyler Bertuzzi took a maintenance day yesterday. It sounds like he's going to play in this game tonight. But Matthew Nyes with his roommate John Tavares now on the second line, and Willie Nylander. What do you make of that?
Lots of potential. Lots of potential. William Tavares have been a couple of standouts this year on the forward side of things. I've noticed them a lot. I've liked what they've brought. Obviously, Austin Matthews has overshadowed both of them, but they've looked quite solid at the beginning of the year. And Nyzy is my boy, and I want him to go out there, get his first tickle of the year tonight, get that monkey off his back. And, hopefully this can be a line that evolves into something that is a mainstay in the lineup. These guys could get tons of mojo going, get clicking. And like you say, they live together. They could, do everything together and get a lot of that chemistry going amongst themselves would be the ideal thing. And I don't know, man, you could break it down however you want and have your different opinions on it. But in order to get chemistry going, you have to give it a chance and an opportunity. So let's bookmark this morning on the start of this experiment on this line and see how long they let it last. I mean, it's like, look at the line. It's a good line. You're not going to hurt anything by letting it go for a couple of weeks, letting them get used to each other. There's all the reason in the world to think that there's potential there. Let's see if Sheldon Keefe lets them play and gives them a chance to get that chemistry going. Because once you get chem going and once you get that momentum rolling with a line, oftentimes it can be hard to stop, and you can have months of just dominance if you let it fester and turn into something special. And so far, I don't believe that they have even given any line a chance to get to that point, because he blows it up all the time, man. And I know it's early, but let's just bookmark this time and see how long he lets this experiment last.
Well, a couple of things. I could tell you first and foremost, surprise, surprise, the analytics community does not like the look of this combination. They say it's going to last about one period. I think it's going to last more than the Nylander to center experiment. Number two, I think there's the chemistry there. Like we mentioned it, John Tavares lives with Matthew Nyes. He lives with Fraser Minten. We'll get to that story too. But I get why they elected to start the season with the Minten and Nyes combo. They had a lot of chemistry in training camp. They're both kids. It made a lot of sense. But in the grand scheme of things, and we talked about this yesterday, Max Domi, I think, is better suited to be a third-line forward than a top six guy at this point in his career. Like, he hasn't had that sustainability, the consistency in recent years that suggests he should be a mainstay in the top six. And again, it's a long season. I think in the long run and short term, Matthew Nyes is better suited to be a top six winger. And on top of that, I think a lot of this is about Nyes' confidence. He's a young player in the league. He's played a handful of games. Hasn't scored yet. You've played in this league, and maybe you're the wrong person to reference, but if you don't score for a couple games, it goes to your head to start the season, no?
Well, it's hard for me to...
And that was a shot, too, by the way. A full-fledged shot at you.
It's hard for me to relate to that. I mean, it was just my third game in the NHL when I tickled the twine, so I don't really know where these guys are coming from when they haven't tucked in a while. It's difficult for me, but I can guess that it would hurt the confidence. I imagine it feels bad. Again, I don't really know what that's like.
I think you had that feeling if you didn't fight for like 3 games, probably.
Pretty much. It's like, what am I doing here? No, I mean, a definite confidence booster for him. I like him in the top six because top six is so heavily offensive. They're so heavily creative and so heavily talented. It's nice to have a Nyzy, who I kind of consider him a little bit of a power forward, so to speak. He gets down there. He just has that wide-legged body that can protect the puck and go get the puck out of the corners, keep it away from their defensemen and get possession of it, and then get it in the hands of those studs. And then when, Nylander's looping around the net and coming up to the top and doing his thing, he can find those little soft spots and sneak off to a little backdoor corner and find the open ice that inevitably could lead to a bunch of points for these guys. So I don't know about the analytics community and what they're talking about or why they think that wouldn't work, but we're going to find out tonight. And hopefully, at least if that's something that they want in the future, they give it a chance to blossom.
Man, it's not talked about enough, but like JT is so classy. I saw this story the other day. We knew Nyes was going to live with him because, again, we broke that story when we had Matt Nyes on in the spring and somehow became a story in September for some reason. But he did tell us and confirm he was coming back. So piggyback and pat of the hands in the back to us. But more so like taking in Fraser Minten as well. So like JT said to the media, I guess it was Nyes' birthday on Tuesday. So happy belated to him. But JT's kids were just pumped up. They gave him a gift. They gave him a suitcase and a shirt. But for John Tavares, who has a growing family and a wife and everybody to make happy and stuff like that, taking in 2 kids from his team just shows you everything John Tavares is, not only on the ice where he's been the model of consistency, pretty much a point per game player now in year 6 of the 7-year contract, if you can believe it. but what he brings off the ice. I've been saying this since day one. He is the perfect captain for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Nothing bothers this guy. It's tremendous.
Yeah, it's solid. It's a class move. And I mean, hats off to his wife too. I mean, you got two
Yeah.
meathead young guys eating her out of house and home, I'm sure. That's a big thing on her plate too. And hopefully those guys are pulling their weight, doing their own laundry and stuff like that. But
I hope.
around here, we have a junior A team, and I know lots of families that take in a player as a billet, right? And yes, the hockey players eat these places out of house and home, no doubt. But the effect that these players have on their families, especially when they have young kids, which JT does, is irreplaceable. It's like these players become part of the family. And I'm sure that the Tavareses can handle the grocery bill, but it's only going to make their family, fuller and more enjoyable. And it's those years that those kids have with these NHL players living at their house. I'm sure they're just begging them to play mini sticks 24/7, which is probably the biggest problem of it in general. But for that captain to take two guys under his house and his roof is just solid. It's nothing short of selfless, and I'm sure their family's having a blast and will look back on it fondly. But it's just a class move by a captain and a veteran to say, hey, you guys. And like I said last year, this is how it's done. This is how you be a professional. Everything Johnny T does, from his pregame meals to how he handles himself to what he's eating and when he's sleeping and when he leaves to the rink and how long he stays there before he heads back home, will all rub off on these young players. And if I was brass management, I'd be tickled pink that that was the situation with these two young guys.
I can tell you JT has not changed from day one. I told you I covered this guy in junior when he was a member of the London Knights for like 3 months. My buddy, one of my good buddies, is the goalie on the team. So, I found out a lot about JT. Nothing has changed about this guy since he was 14. Just his professionalism, the way he conducts himself. Like, he really is a class act. It takes the right person. What he did, the hostility, the heat, he's still getting to this day for leaving Long Island to come home to be a Toronto Maple Leaf. The media attention, I think he's been tremendous. And again, when push comes to shove and his career as a Maple Leaf is over, whether it's after next year or down the road, maybe he retires a Leaf, I think we look back and say this was the right decision to make JT captain. There are better players on this roster, no doubt about it. But what he brings to the table off the ice, you can't measure that. And you know that you've been in an NHL room, right? Phaneuf was changing music for you guys.
Oh, God, was that ever a big story? I remember it vividly. Like, guys are playing ping pong and he goes and like puts a tune on his phone, and the whole freaking market just went bananas that the guy turned on a song. That was the dumbest thing
Everybody
I've ever seen.
wants to talk about Ryan Reeves now. I love the Reeves pickup. Nobody's talking about Marner being goalless. It's all Ryan Reeves, baby. That's why they brought him in. I love it. I love it.
Yep. He's taking some spotlight off of guys. That's true. JT always reminds me of like Jonathan Taves, like Mr. Serious. He just does everything right. I don't know him personally. I haven't really asked around. I'm sure he's just a great, solid guy. But I do wonder if those guys ever cut loose and crank a few beers and have a time out there. Maybe not, eh? Maybe dude, Mr. Too Serious.
They were the London Knights in London. For comparative sake, that's like being a Toronto Maple Leaf in Toronto. That's the Mecca. You get 10,000 people a night at your barn. That's how Easton Cowan's feeling these days. And JT stayed in his lane. Like, Michael Del Zotto was on that team, bumped into him a bunch. John Carlson, who's with the Capitals, bumped into him a bunch on the bar strip. Never saw JT. Saw Kadri a bunch. Never saw JT. And that's why JT is who he is. I want to get your thoughts on the rest of the lineup. Not really much in terms of tweaking for this game, but they're sticking with that new look, those new look pairings. So Riley Brody's going to stick, it sounds like. Then McCabe Liljegren, Giordano Klingberg. I think if there's one thing I'm monitoring in this game tonight, Rosie, is the deep pairings and how they work out. I mean, it's no secret, just a couple games into this season, the Leafs have been pretty terrible defensively here.
Yeah, it needs to be cleaned up for sure. We'll see how those pairings work out. I mean, it's just whether it's a systematic thing on what your roles are during certain plays, and when your partner's pinching or rushing the puck, and the different exchanges and switches that you have to do in the D zone, whether they're tweaking that or not. I'm sure they're watching videos and figuring out where they're exposed, and you're just looking for them to rebound tonight and have a more solid defensive game. Clean up some of the mistakes, clean up some of the chances against, and odd man rushes and losing your man in the D zone. that needs to be cleaned up, and we'll be looking to see that tonight for sure. I'm sure they're doing their best to prevent that from happening again.
Daniel Campbell writes in, Nick and Jay, will the Leafs keep Fraser Minten past 9 games? I'll let you answer this first.
It's tough, man. It's tough. If they feel like he's not
Give an
developing,
answer, damn it.
No, they won't. I just think he's you do that explosive thing out of training camp and you look really solid with knives, and he did. But is that sustainable in the NHL? And at, like, say next year at training camp, is he going to be a better player if he stays in this league, or be a better player if he goes back? And that's going to be a decision for them, and they know best than any of us. But at that age, I just have a tough time believing that this league is the best place for him to develop, because ultimately you're trying to get him to the point where he's the best player possible here in the next couple of years. And I don't know if being in the NHL is going to be the best thing for him, but that's going to be a decision they make. I think that he might be better served going down.
Yeah, you reminded me of like Mr. Wilson from Home Improvement back in the day, where your like head was half over the fence, half under it, really couldn't see. Well, it was Mr. Wilson, right?
Just Wilson. Mr. Wilson is Dennis the Menace. Come on.
Okay, excuse me. I fucked that up. I got to be careful with that. Wilson. Thank you, Wilson. I knew you were going to handle me on that. But nonetheless, you understood. I'm giving a full-fledged answer. I say no, and there's nothing wrong with that. Everything you just mentioned, I think it just makes more sense for this kid to go back to junior, rip it up, be on the World J team, and then come back next year more powerful, stronger, a year older. There's nothing wrong with this. Like, Rosie, we sort of forget heading into training camp, like, this guy was an afterthought to even play more than a couple games in training camp. Never mind crack the roster in the regular season. On top of that, there are plenty of guys who can come up and be really, really strong NHLers for you. Pontus Holmberg, like, this guy deserves a look. I don't know what happened last year. He had like 11, 12 game stretch where he was really, really good for this team. Fell out of favor a bit with Sheldon Keefe, then never really, got that role back. Nick Robertson's still trying to find his way. Bobby McMahon's a guy who has proven a bit at the NHL level. So it's not like they have no options available to them. And in the grand scheme of things, I think that'll win out. I don't think Minten makes it past 9 games here.
Yeah, there's reason to believe that's true. And it's just a matter of someone stepping up in that role. It's a bottom 6 role. Someone step up and do what this team needs. Be an energy guy, hit everything that moves, drive the net hard, forecheck hard, keep the puck in their end, be responsible defensively, work your absolute bag off every shift, give this team what they want, and you will be the guy in the lineup. It's just a matter of someone stepping up and saying, it's an easy decision now. I just won this job.
I like it. You see on your screen there, Ilya Samsonov confirmed yesterday as the starter. We all knew that was coming, but again, a pretty mediocre start to his season. Most goalies in the league are having trouble. It happens every October. 4.42, an 839. That's another guy I'll be looking closely at tonight.
Sammy?
Yeah,
for sure. It's time that he looks sharp. It's time that he looks poised. He needs a big game, I think. Confidence-wise, I'm not saying he's lost any confidence or anything, but hasn't really had that dominant game yet. And I think that's important for a goaltender to just be on all the angles. Your timing is perfect. You're big. You're in position. You're calm. You're poised. A really solid game for a goaltender. Get a win tonight. That's what we're looking for with Sammy, and starting to build those building blocks of confidence for him to be the tried and true starter of this team that gives him a chance to win every single night.
Shorzy writes in, giving up on Minten after 3 games is such a Leafy thing to do. I wouldn't say we're giving up on the guy. I think we have the long-term scope in mind, that you watch his body of work, his game, and it hasn't been the same since the preseason, right? Like, again, a lot can change in the next couple games. Maybe he takes off. Maybe he flourishes. That's another thing we should talk about too. Like, your thoughts on having 2 vets with Minten now. Domi and Yarncroke are going to play on that line. I think obviously they're going to give this a serious look over the next couple games and determine, but I wrote this in an article the other day for the LeafsNation.com. If there's any doubt whatsoever in the minds of Sheldon Keefe and the coaching staff, then there's your decision right there, right?
Yeah, because if there is any doubt and it doesn't work out, and he's taken a step back, and then all of a sudden he's not in the lineup, and then it's like, well, shit, we can't send him back to junior anymore. He can't play in the American Hockey League. Like, you're screwing this kid. You're screwing yourselves. If he's not going to play and be effective and get tons of touches and tons of reps and tons of ice time and be an absolute mainstay in the lineup, then why would you put a 19-year-old kid in the press box where he's not even playing anymore.
Yeah.
Confidence is going down. Not a good look, not a good play by anybody. It's not a Leafy thing to do. It's a smart thing to do, which anyone would do, and all other teams do it. It wasn't a Leafy thing to keep the kid, was it? He came out of the woodworks. He wasn't a big contract, wasn't a big signing, wasn't a big guy that everyone had their pens written down on his name on this roster, and he went and won. And they said, damn right, here you go. You just earned this. This is what we asked of everyone at training camp. You did it. Here's your job. He stays on the team, and now you get that 9-game period to figure it out. And if it's going to be a detriment to his development to keep him because maybe he's not the best guy to be in the lineup that night, and then nights afterwards, the last thing you want is a kid like that sit in the presser.
Tell you what, if Minton does end up going back to junior, I hope he pulls the old Easton Cowan, dude, because coming off that training camp where he really, really impressed, all Easton Cowan has done is impressed at the OHL level again and ripped it up. He's got 4 goals, 9 points in 4 games for the London Knights, bunch of highlight reel goals, some scraps. He's done everything.
He's sick. I saw a sick and rip he had last night on Instagram today. And yeah, for a guy that wasn't on anyone's radar, for us to snatch him at 28, and people were bitching about taking him at 28 too. Why did you do this guy? He's a solid player all around. Like you said, gets into scrap too, lighting junior up. Look out for this guy next training camp when he comes full or firing on all cylinders, confidence out the wazoo, just lit up. Junior said, there, that's a definite thing in my mind. Now I'm done with junior. I have outgrown that league. I'm ready for the next step, and he can try to take that with tons of confidence.
I think more than ever, and I know it's been made, a lot of it's been made in the cap era about having these type of guys like Nyes and Minton and Cowan who you can slot into your lineup who can really, really contribute and exceed and overplay what they make per season. But I think next year moving forward more than ever, because the cap's projected to go up, $4.5 million, something like that. They got a lot of cap space, obviously a lot of decisions to make with guys like Samsonov and Brody, and obviously the big one with Nylander and other guys on this roster, the one-year guys they brought in. But I think those years more than ever, you're going to need guys like that, the youngsters with potential to really, really step up, because I think it could set this team apart. So let's say you make some monster changes, you bring in some different looks, some different guys, you spread the wealth financially. You sprinkle that with the Nyes of the world who still, I know he'll be looking for a new contract here, and Minton's ELC and Cowan's ELC. You sprinkle those guys into the lineup, mixed with the other guys that you're thinking of bringing in. I think it complements the team much better, and I think it's important for the cap here.
Big time. I mean, in a cap era, you need to draft well. You need to develop your own players, and you need your prospects to come in and earn jobs and play over their salaries. They're not big, fat, cap-eating salaries on entry-level contracts. They're just not that way anymore, and that's to not the detriment of the players. I think it's important to go earn your money, to go prove that you should be paid, right? And with these days, younger and younger guys getting paid, it's nice to see that it still matters to develop your guys. You can't go to free agency and just start buying a team. It doesn't work with the cap. You have to have guys within your own system and pipeline come up. You look at the team like Pittsburgh Penguins, what they did forever. They were drafting guys and developing them like crazy. Tampa Bay Lightning, they brought guys out of their own pipeline and organization to come up and play out of their asses for them, and they're winning Stanley Cups because of it. And you need to draft well. Your scouting is important. Your development team is important, and to get guys out of junior and get them on your roster early, and to find those diamonds in the rough that can play way over top of their annual value from contract is super important. So the fact that we are doing it with Nyes and Minton stepping up, and we're starting to see that, it's very important, because your depth goes a long way, and you can't pay those guys out the ass, or you're just going to run out of room.
Pretty much. That's essentially what's going to happen. And again, it's just going to be a unique and peculiar year because of all the one-year deals they have here and expiring contracts, that if, Brad Treliving really wants to shift the focus and the attention of this team and change things up to the brand of style he wants to play, then I think it's going to be a much different team. And I think it'll put more onus and emphasis on some of the younger players on this roster. But nevertheless, the Betano wrap-up is presented by Betano.ca. The game starts now. 19 plus, please play responsibly. So it's the Leafs and Panthers tonight from Amerant Bank Arena. What are a couple things you're looking at? I'm looking at Mitch Marner. You talked about this last game. You struck out mightily on that one. He's hasn't bulged its wine just yet, but I would look at that combination in general, the Marner line. I think Matthews is going to cook. like it's weird to say because it's so early on in this season, but I think this is a big, we talked about it earlier, measuring stick game. And with that, I want the guys who really, really struggled in that series, the nucleus of this team, the core four, the core players, whatever you want to call them. I want to see them do something tonight, Rosie.
The nuclei? Yes, I do
The
too.
nucleus. Yeah.
Two players I'm looking at is Mitch Marner and Samsonov. I want to see those guys get off, start their season off. Like you said, it's only 3 games in. It's not like they haven't started on the right foot. I mean, you're on game 78. Do you think you're going to be looking back at game 3 or 4 and worried about it? No. But it would be nice if these guys got off and started cooking. Let some of that Matthews start rub off on his buddy Marner. And in between the pipes there, I want to see Sammy have a solid game. And if we can do those 2 things, it'll be a good start. I mean, there's a couple things that we are talking about. We want our goaltender to take hold. We want Marner to take off and start showing who he is, and we want our D-core to start tightening it up. You do that, this team is going to be a force to be reckoned with, but there is very few days in a season where a team's just got it all going on and everything's just in place. It's a constant grind to try to get it all going at the same time, but that's what I'm looking for tonight.
I'm going to roll with a Matthew Nyes point, right? We've been talking about this a lot. I'm looking forward to seeing that line with Nyes, JT, and Nylander, and I think it's overdue. I might look at a nice point here.
Well, it's going to have to be 5-on-5, right?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I think he was buzzing all training camp, and he showed last year that he could provide offense in different levels and different parts of the game. So I think Matthew Nyes is a player to watch for me.
I like it. He'll be wanting to make the most out of his opportunity on that line. So it's not a bad pick for me. And the way Nylander has been buzzing, I think he could make some noise right now. And, if he's doing what he does and Nyes gets a touch on it, there's an appetizer for you. And Nicholas wins again.
Yeah, and the appetizer is our leadoff segment on this show, brought to you by our good friends over at DoorDash. So don't forget that, Rosie. We'll leave it at that for today. I can't believe another week. We'll be wrapping things up tomorrow with another Friday edition of the show. Time's just flying with this show this season.
Weird. Yeah, it is. We're just banging them off, baby. JR yesterday, go check out that interview. Always a character and a good guy to talk to that's never dull or boring. He's always giving you sound bites. So that was wicked interviewing him. He is a walking legend. And yeah, Friday tomorrow. It's almost done, but big game tonight. I hope we're happy in the morning.
Me too. So we're going to recap that game. We're also going to look ahead to the weekend, another matchup with the first round opponent from last year, the Tampa Bay Lightning. So we'll preview that. It'll be game 2 of this 5-game road trip. But first, we'll talk and break down and hopefully a Maple Leaf victory against the Florida Panthers tonight. So we'll leave it at that. Many thanks to everybody in the chat at the Leaf Station 401, where you can subscribe here on YouTube. Just search Leafs Morning Take wherever you find your podcast. Please subscribe, like, comment, give us some love, please. We're bringing you the heat, so bring us the heat right back. Many thanks to producer Amerant Bank Arena and my co-host Jay Rosehill. I'm Nick Alberga. Thanks so much for listening and watching. We'll talk tomorrow. Take care.
Thank you for watching Leafs Morning Take. Hit the subscribe button to never miss a show. And for more, visit theleafsnation.com.